Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John and this is going to be my entire 4K collection part 3. Now this is definitely going to be my last part, so let's crack on. First up is Last Action Hero. I talked about this recently. I just thought that this movie does look incredible. I've watched the whole film and I'll tell you more about that and what I've watched at the end of the month. But the cover and the fact that it doesn't have a slipcase is the big downside to me, and I just think they could, with this movie being such a good movie and a big movie to release, I just wish that they at least put a slipcover on it. So that's Last Action Hero. Next up is Mad Max. This is the American Kino Lorber release. It's and it looks absolutely stunning, I've got to say, and it's also got this really good reversible artwork on there. I think it's a really good set to have, and it's great to see. If you see the sort of boutique labels doing these older horror films, you do get these movies and they look absolutely, the packaging on looks absolutely spectacular, and the big companies are just getting a bit lazy these days, I've found. So that's Mad Max. Next up is Mad Max Fury Road. I think this movie looks, I saw this movie, the pictures with my son, and we had a great time with it. It was just action, non-stop action. I think this movie does look spectacular, and I'm excited to see what happens with the Mad Max franchise in the future. Will it go anywhere? Because after this we thought, oh, this is it, it's going to be just, they're going to plod on with everything now to do with Mad Max, and it just come to a sort of bit of grind and halt. So that's Mad Max Fury Road. Next up is The Magnificent Seven. I haven't watched this movie yet, but I do hear good things about it and I do want to watch it. I just haven't got around to it yet. I will be watching it with my wife, and but I have checked some parts of it out and it does look absolutely brilliant. The fact it's usually mostly outside, because obviously it's a western, and I do like westerns in general, and I think that westerns can look good, although there's not that many on 4K, I think. So that's The Magnificent Seven. Next up is The Mechanic Resurrection. This is the second one in the Mechanic series from Jason Statham, and I think these movies are good movies. The first one's out in 4K. This one looks really nice. Actually, it's got some lovely scenes in it, and yeah, so I do like Jason Statham. I think he's good for what he is, and so this one's, if you can, I found this cheap, so if you can get it cheap, I think it's a really good movie actually. That's The Mechanic Resurrection. Next up is a movie that we saw at the pictures and we really enjoyed actually. It is The Meg, another Jason Statham movie, and I do think that this movie's, it is what it is, but I think it's one of the better shark movies that came out recently. And I do think, wow, this was setting this up to be a bit of a franchise, and then of course nothing ever happens with it. I would love to see them return to this in some shape or form, because the film did set it up for a bit of a sequel. So, but I think it's a highly entertaining watch, and I do think the 4K on here does work really well. I think a 4K movie that's got to do with water, I think especially, seems to come to life. So that's The Meg. Next up is Mission Impossible Fallout. We went to the picture to see this one as well, and I've got to say that the IMAX scenes on here look unreal. It's one of the best sort of picture qualities I've seen on the 4K. The movie itself is really good. I was never a fan of Tom Cruise back in the day. In fact, I found him to be, his movies were just movies I just wasn't interested at all. But I do think that these Mission Impossible movies are really watchable, and they're getting better as they go on. And they say the picture quality on here and the sound quality on here is absolutely stunning. And I can't wait to see the new Mission Impossible movie. So that's Mission Impossible Fallout. I think it's the 6th movie that. Next up is a strange movie because it looks absolutely spectacular, but it's not that. It's not a great movie. It is Mortal Engines. I think that the whole look of this movie and the colours on this movie and the set pieces, set designs are unreal. I just think that the movie itself kind of just falls flat in its face. But I'm going to give it a second watch. Me and Deborah are going to have a look at it and just say, well, I knew I wasn't expecting much out of it. But there's just something about it that just didn't work for me. So unfortunately, because it's just an absolutely spectacular movie to look at. So that's Mortal Engines. Next up is The Mule. I got this recently. I've checked out little bits of it, and just to see what the picture quality is like, and the picture quality looks absolutely brilliant on it. And I like Clint Eastwood. I've got to say that I think he's probably my favourite actor of all time. I think I like more of his movies than I like of any other person's movies. I just think he's a very entertaining watch. And even at his age, I mean, he is very old now, but he still can sort of come across and do a movie when some people would hang the gloves up by now. So that's The Mule. Next up is a great movie. I do like Kevin Hart, and it is Night School. This is the American release, and we watched this on Sky Movies, and I'll watch anything with Kevin Hart in it, and we really enjoyed it. So I thought, when I saw this on 4K and read up about it, it said the colours on here are spectacular, although it's not a huge uptake, because the Blu-ray these days can give you more or less what this movie is about. But when I got this, it is the colours. The colours make this movie just come to life. So I really enjoyed it. You know, these movies, you can get them quite cheap from the US on eBay. So that's Night School. Next up is 1917. This movie looks absolutely spectacular on 4K. It's stunning, and the movie itself is stunning. How they did it is beyond belief, actually. The fact that it's supposed to be taken in one take, although it's not. And it just looks, for that reason, it's just like a movie that you don't see very much of, them one take movies, and one that looks that good. And it does get you here. Like it is a sort of, it's not a tough watch, but it's a bit of an emotional watch. And to think that these people had to go through this type of thing in 1917 is just unreal. So that's 1917. Next up is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the only movie that I own by Tarantino on 4K. I think they need to get more of his movies out, especially Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. This movie, it's a decent movie. It's not a bad movie. I just think that I didn't realize it was a comedy until about nearly 2/3 of the way through. It's a good watch. I will watch it again, and I do think that the picture quality on here is nice, but I think he's played it with a very mute palette. The colours aren't really colourful, if you know what I mean. So, but it's a decent movie. I will buy his movies on 4K because I do like them that much, but it's not my favourite Quentin Tarantino movie. So that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Next up is Pacific Rim. I got this on the recommendation from Keith from Euphoria Pictures, linked down below. And he said this is one of the best 4Ks he's ever seen. So when I saw it in a 2 for £30 sale, I thought, right, I'll get that one. And I've got to admit, it does look unreal. I haven't watched it yet, but I've watched bits and pieces of it. And it's the sound quality in here is stunning as well. But the picture quality is just something else. It's one of those movies where you think, how on earth did they do the special effects? I mean, the special effects, you know, with them being CGI, could look a bit ropey on 4K or just not rendered that good. But this one is just, it's just absolutely unreal. So I'm dying to watch it, actually. I have heard bad things about the sequel. I don't think I'll go there, but I will definitely check this out. That's Pacific Rim. Next up is Passengers, with a lovely slip. I'll catch the light on the eyes there. Yep, there you go. This was quite a good movie, actually. I do like these two actors on here, Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. I think they've been quite good in the movies that I've seen them in. So this is quite a good watch, actually. It's the premise is that they get stranded on a ship that's out of control, and then they wake up years later out of like stasis. And the movie takes part in there, but it's got some good twists in it, actually. And I thought this was a really good watch, and it does look really nice on 4K, because it's the whole interiors of the spaceship where it takes place on most of the film. That comes to life. It's really sort of sleek and polished. So that's Passengers. Next up is Predator. Now this is a great 4K, and I'll tell you why. Because you've got the Blu-ray on here. Now the Blu-ray is the one that's been DNR'd to hell, so it's absolutely horrible to look at. And the 4K hasn't been touched at all in that way. But you're getting a bit more grain on it, which people don't like, but I personally don't mind grain. And it's like chalk and cheese. So you've got like a really good comparison on this movie for me. The Blu-ray itself, it looks okay, but it looks very waxy, and the 4K just gets rid of all them problems, and it looks spectacular as well. And this is how this movie should be seen. So that's Predator. Next up is The Prestige. This is a Christopher Nolan movie. I haven't watched it yet, but I've checked it out. I would say it's got a decent 4K. It's not really mind-blowing. Not as much as some of the other Christopher Nolan movies. I do want to see it because it's a Christopher Nolan movie, and it was cheap in a sale, so I thought it was only £10. So I thought, well, I'll get it on this one, because if I do like it, I will not want to upgrade it. If I get the Blu-ray, I don't want to upgrade, so I'd rather start off with a 4K and see how I go with that. If I didn't like the movie, that's fair enough. But so that's The Prestige. Next up is Ready Player One. I really enjoyed this movie. It's got a lot of throwbacks to other movies. In fact, I don't know how they got the rights to show all the little clips and little things that were shown in this movie. The best part of it is when they go into the Shining and they've got this whole thing where they're in The Shining. That is just absolutely amazing. It's one of one of the standout scenes in cinema for me. I had such a good time in this movie for them little sort of tricks, and it's got Mecha Godzilla in it, it's got King Kong, it's got the DeLorean, it's got everything you could want for sort of callbacks. It's like the ultimate callback movie. So that's Ready Player One. Next up is Red Heat. This is one of the sort of older Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and I'm interested in collecting some of his mid-80s movies because I think they're so entertaining. They're very cheesy, but they're very watchable, and the picture quality in here is absolutely stunning as well. It's one of the ones where it wasn't my favourite one when it came out. I remember enjoying more of his films, much more, but this one's, it's not a bad movie actually, and I'm really pleased to get it. And like I say, they've done an amazing job with this 4K. It is from Studio Canal as well, so that tells you everything you need to know about that. So that's Red Heat. Next up is The Revenant in a Blu-ray case, because there is no slipcover for this one. So I seen a Blu-ray for it. In fact, I had it on Blu-ray, so I thought, right. No, I didn't have it on Blu-ray. So I saw it in CEX. It's one of the best things about CEX. You can buy the cheap Blu-ray and put the cover on it so it looks good on the shelf. No one ever know. This movie looks unreal. It's a good movie actually. It's very long. It's a bit drawn out, but the special effects with the bear scene is just mind-blowing actually. And I've got to say that Leonardo DiCaprio does a stunning performance in here. Same as Tom Hardy, although you can't really understand a word that Tom Hardy says in this movie. He's a bit like Bane with a sock in his mouth. But anyway, I do like this movie. I think it's a great movie, and I like the fact that it was one of the standout 4K. Everyone, when you got 4K, everyone said get The Revenant first. So that's The Revenant. Next up is one of my favourite films of all time. It is Scarface. This is the gold edition. This movie, I didn't think it would look that good. I don't know why, because I think that I always remember that the VHS was grainy, and I haven't watched this film for a long time, and I do think that this looked spectacular. Not all of it. There's some sort of like grainy parts in it, but there's a lot of scenes where you just think, wow, this looks unreal. And to see this movie again after not watching it for quite a long time was a bit of a revelation. And I thought, will I enjoy it as much as I used to enjoy it? And the answer is yes. I think I enjoyed it more, because Al Pacino's role in this film is just next level. And it's one of those 80s classics movies that you always looked at and thought, this is good stuff. So that's Scarface. Next up is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Now I've got to say I dropped the ball on this one, because usually when I go for 4K, I will do a little bit of detective work and see, is it worth it? Because usually you can find out straight away if somebody says, nah, this is not that good, or it's good. Unfortunately, this isn't the best one I've seen. Unfortunately, it's quite close to the Blu-ray. It's one of the ones that I've been most disappointed with when I put it on. I actually thought at one point, have I put the Blu-ray on from this set? It is what it is. I do like the movie. I love the movie actually. I do think that for some reason it didn't really come to life as a 4K. I mean, I've got it now. I'm going to keep it as 4K, but I'm really disappointed in the fact that it should have looked better. It could have looked better for me. I think the colours on here are just a little bit, they're just not where they should be, because it's a very colourful film, and it's a very disappointing release if I'm honest. So unfortunately, I'm going to say, if you're ever thinking about getting Scott Pilgrim versus the World, unless you find it very cheap, don't bother getting on 4K, because it's not much of an uptick. It's not anything spectacular. So unfortunately, that's what I've got to say about that one. That's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Very disappointing. Next up is The Shallows. I think this is a great movie. And I think I watched it on Sky Movies first, thinking, this is going to be a right load of rubbish, another Jaws film or Jaws rip-off. But wow, it's probably one of the best ones I've seen in the Jaws sort of like the mega nuts that do go on the sort of Jaws theme. And it looks lovely, because obviously, like I say, it's on a lovely island. It's mainly in the water for the full film, and it's got some great scenes in here. And it's like I say, that the actual the look of the film as well, I think makes it look that much more better, because it's just so vibrant and bright. So that's The Shallows. Next up is Shazam. I remember thinking, well, I like this movie, because I don't know why I thought I would like this movie, but me and my wife had a great time with it. I thought it was so fun. Can't wait to see the sequel. Actually, I'll probably go and see the sequel at the cinema. I think the 4K in here looks really good as well. It comes across as a very high bit rate. I remember that one. It's one of the ones where I thought, oh, this is nearly pushing 100 megabytes per second, which you don't see that often. So that's it's a really nice 4K, and I do think the movie's great. And I hope that they continue with this sort of comedic route on the next film. So that's Shazam. Next up is a movie that I personally think this actress is great, but a lot of people don't like her. And the movie is Snatched. Now this is Amy Schumer, and also Goldie Hawn as well, plays a mother. This is a great movie, and I got this from America actually because I would like to get all of her stuff on 4K because I have a great time with all the movies. And she gets a lot of bad press. I don't know why, but if people don't like her, they don't like her. But I found this movie to be quite an entertaining romp through the fact that these two get involved in this sort of drug crime thing, and they're trying to get out of it, and they're sort of getting, this gangs are after them and everything. I think it's quite a good comedy. And I always think that Goldie Hawn's good in a comedy, and Amy Schumer, I think she's funny, and I do like the TV series she had out. So that's Snatched. Next up is Spartacus. This looks great on 4K. It's one of those movies that I just knew would look good on 4K. I've had the Blu-ray before, and the Blu-ray looked nice, but this has just got that extra little look about it. And the movie is one of those movies that needs to be seen in 4K, one of these big sort of blockbusters from Hollywood. Another movie I'd like to see is Cleopatra as well, because with Elizabeth Taylor, that looks stunning on Blu-ray, and I would love to see that in 4K because I think that could look spectacular as well. I have watched this movie, and it didn't connect with me as much as the other Stanley Kubrick movies, because I think he came in at the last minute to take over this movie, and I think Kirk Douglas had a fallout with somebody, so he asked Stanley Kubrick to finish the film off. And you can see it's not really a Stanley Kubrick movie in such, but I still think it looks spectacular, and I do need to go back and give this another watch. It's a very long film as well. So that's Spartacus. Next up is The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I remember watching this with my son way back when, and I thought it was alright. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I thought it was pretty decent, and then all of a sudden this didn't really seem to go, as all the Spider-Man things seemed to like stop. So, but the 4K on here is really spectacular, and it was quite cheap as well, so I was interested to just get these ones on 4K, as I think I want to get all the Spider-Man movies on 4K because I'm a big fan of Spider-Man in general. So that's The Amazing Spider-Man. Also, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I remember seeing this with my son on Blu-ray, and I didn't like it at all. I thought it was complete. I just don't know why it just didn't connect with me in any way, shape or form. In fact, I didn't even watch the full film. It's one of the rare times I turned the movie off. But I watched that one, I did enjoy it, and I watched this one again. I thought, well, will I enjoy it? You know, it was cheap again, so I thought, well, why not? And I've got to say, I did really enjoy it. I thought myself, right, it is what it is. And I think sometimes when you have these movies and you just say, it is what it is, and I'm going to just put it on for what it is. And because the HDR and the 4K on here is absolutely spectacular, it does make you kind of like the movie more if that is a bit more, it's pleasurable on the eye, so that kind of gets you through the movie as well if the movie's not great. I mean, it's all right. It's not the best Spider-Man movie by any means, but it's a decent watch and a good 4K as well. So that's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So obviously they didn't get around to Amazing Spider-Man 3, did they? So next up is Spider-Man Homecoming. I do like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I do think that this series is not too bad, this part of Spider-Man, although it seems to be going a little bit strange for this new Spider-Man movie, which could be great. I don't know how they're going to go, where they're going to go after that, but there you go. So that's Spider-Man Homecoming. I think the 4K though does really spectacular on this movie. I think we saw this at the pictures as well, and we did enjoy it. So that's Spider-Man Homecoming. Next up is Spider-Man Far From Home. We saw this at the cinema as well, and had a great time with it. It's really enjoyable actually. These Spider-Man movies I think are they're like teen movies, but you know, in the Marvel realm. And I think that I will go and see every Spider-Man movie at the cinema because it's, like I say, it's one of my favourite comic book heroes of all time. And the 4K on here is spectacular as well. So that's Spider-Man Far From Home. Next one is a movie that my wife didn't like at all, mainly for the way it was the animation. Now the animation in this one, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is stunning, but it's a bit like, it's weird because you've got like sort of these lines. It looks a little bit blurred, if I'm honest. But I did personally get through it and sort of got into the way it was drawn. And but my wife did think, she said it was a great movie, but she said she wasn't really keen on the animation because of that whole blurry lines effect and that. But I thought it was a decent movie, and I would like to see, there's a new one coming out, so I'd like to see that one. So that's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Next up is Split. Now this is the second part in the trilogy with Unbreakable, Split and Glass. This I find is the best one by a mile, and James McAvoy's performance in here is great. It's good as a standalone movie for me, and his whole way, he's got these multiple personalities. I think he's got 24 multiple personalities, and one of them's called the Beast, which like takes the other ones, and that's the dominant force in this group. So I just think the performance in here is unreal, and I was really surprised to see that this was part of that franchise, I think, as most people were. And the 4K on here looks really nice, actually. Some of the movie's quite dark as well, because it's filmed in a sort of like dungeon type thing, or a bit of a sort of Saw-esque, where people are locked up. And I think it comes to life on them scenes, because that could be quite dark, and like one of these ones where it doesn't come across like colours and stuff, but it really does. And I like it for that reason, the fact that some of these movies, when you get a dark movie, put the HDR on it, it brings you get to see what's inside the darkness. So that's Split. Next up is a movie that I've just bought. It is The Spy Who Dumped Me. Now it's funny, because I've been looking at this for a long time. It's been on my list to buy for a long time. Now I saw this and it was dead cheap. It was only £12. So I thought, right, I'm going to get this one. I have heard bad things about it, because they say that the comedy in it just doesn't work. But I'm a big fan of these people in general. Especially Kate McKinnon. I think she's very funny. I like watching loads of her stuff that she's done on what's it called, Saturday Night Live, and I think that she's just quite a watchable person. And Mila Kunis as well, I think she's good. So yeah, so it's one of the ones where you think, well, it's a comedy. I know that it's not going to be the best comedy going, but for some reason I just like these people, and I like the humor that they do. So I've checked it out, and I think that the 4K on here is really nice as well. I don't know what the movie will be like. I think the movie will probably be what it is. It'll be just like a comedy. And I do like the movies that these lot put out. So that's The Spy Who Dumped Me. Next up is Star Wars. Not Star Wars A New Hope, it's Star Wars. I got this one because I thought, well, I heard decent things about it, and I thought, well, I do like these movies, the original Star Wars trilogy, the best. So I got this one and I watched it, and I do think that this movie does look really good, actually. It's worth the upgrade. Sometimes these movies you get and you think, wow, there's just no point in upgrading them, because it looks exactly the same as a Blu-ray, because they've been remastered that many times on Blu-ray and changed and all that and whatnot. But I do think that this is a very decent version of Star Wars. So that's Star Wars, not Star Wars A New Hope. Next up is obviously The Empire Strikes Back. This one is, like I say, another one. It's been one of my favourite movies of all time, and this obviously I had to get the trilogy, and I was so pleased that I did. I got them quite a cheap price. I think they're only 12 quid. So I wouldn't pay a fortune for them, because I bought them 1,000 times in the past anyway. I must have spent a lot of money on these movies in every shape or form that they've come in, and I think this is obviously me stopping with the 4K version. So that's The Empire Strikes Back. Next up is what is it? Yes, of course, it's Return of the Jedi. I do think that this is my least favourite of the original trilogy. I think it was always the least favourite when it came out. That when I saw it, I was a little bit disappointed with it. I don't think I went to the pictures to see it, but I saw it on VHS and I was like, it's all right, but it's not as good as the other two. But on 4K, I think that it looks absolutely brilliant. I think all the three of them looks brilliant. And also, I don't know how far I'll go into the other sort of Star Wars movies. Probably not that much. I think the Blu-rays will suffice on that. But I might check it out. I don't know. And so that's The Return of the Jedi. Next is Star Wars Rogue One. This is a great movie. I find that this is probably one of the best movies outside of the original Star Wars universe. And it's a good movie. It's like a standalone movie for me, and it fills in a good little chunk of where there was nothing happening. It's got a lot of throwbacks to other movies in here as well. So, and the 4K on here, I think of like a new Star Wars movie, I think it's one of the best ones. I think it looks better than most of the other ones I've seen. I do like the fact that Donnie Yen is in this movie as well. I think he plays a great part. So that's Rogue One. Next up is Superman the movie. This is a one that when I was watching a review from John Clancy, movie collector, linked down below, and also that was backed up by Keith from Euphoria Pictures. They said that this movie starts off a little bit ropey, and then with the special effects heavy, and it doesn't really sort of lend to the 4K that good. And then when it gets out of that, it comes to life. And I've got to say they were completely right. So I think a lot of people said that this looked awful, and that put me off it actually, because I thought, well, why would I want to go there and watch something that was like just not that good? But because I love this film, I watched it 1,000 times when the pictures say it as well. And when I saw it, when I got past that initial first segment, and when he comes to Earth, this film just comes to life. It looks utterly spectacular. So very highly recommended for me. So that's Superman the movie. Next up is Tenet. I haven't seen this yet. It's one of those movies where I do want to see it. I have keep putting it off because I would say, well, we'll watch it, and then what about this? We haven't got enough time. I think it's a movie that you've got to sit down and you've got to really concentrate on. Although from John Clancy, movie collector again, he's got a great video which I'm going to link down below actually, and it sort of takes you through it. He doesn't spoil this movie. He kind of explains it and he goes into a way of explaining it where you think, he doesn't tell you what the movie is, but you think, after that explanation that he puts into it, it makes it a little bit more that I can go into this and understand this movie a bit more. But the 4K on here looks utterly amazing, as I thought it would do. Now this movie is usually cheap. I don't know why it's always cheap, but it is. So I would recommend picking it up if you're a fan of 4K, to pick it up. But just bear in mind that you will not probably understand it on first or second or third time. But check out that link down below, and you will understand a lot more about it without getting any spoilers. So that's Tenet. Next up is Terminator Dark Fate. This is I think this is a great movie. A lot of Terminator movies are, you like them or you loathe them. Obviously the first two are absolute classics, and then after that I sort of dropped off. I did watch part 3 and thought it was absolutely hopeless. I do think I might go back to that one, although I don't think I'll get any more of them in high definition if they're out there. I don't know. Apart from the first two and this one, I think it's got problems. I'm not saying it's a brilliant film, but I do like the Terminator in itself. The sort of the Terminator that was chasing him, I think is absolutely brilliant. And I think that I would like to think them. I don't know where they're going to go after this one. Are they going to go anywhere? I don't know. It's always a case when they start this and they say, oh, this is where it's going to go, and then just nothing ever comes after it. So that's Terminator Dark Fate, and it's spectacular 4K on this as well. I think that I knew it would be, because it looked really nice on Sky Movies as well. So yeah, Terminator Dark Fate. Next up is Thor Ragnarok. This was a movie that I heard a lot of good things about, and maybe mainly because it was sort of directed by Taika Waititi, and I thought, well, that's a box tick for me. And I thought it would have some of his strange humour in it, and it does. It's full of it, and I think that really lends to this movie well. I think this movie is like no other movie in the Marvel universe, and that's great, because you want things that are a bit different. And for me, this is just an absolute joy to watch. And it's so funny as well, and it's got this, like I say, this real oddball humour in it, which I think plays really well. I think when the next one comes out, the Thor, is it Love and Desire or something like that, I would like to think that they carry on in this mode. So that's Thor Ragnarok. The picture quality on here does look absolutely stunning as well. Just mind blowing. Next is a really stunning 4K. It is Tomb Raider. Now you might think, what? But I'm just judging these on what the actual 4K looks like on it. I mean, the movies, it's all right actually. The first half of the movie didn't do it for me. The second half of the movie, when it sort of gets into Tomb Raider sort of things, when they got all these things to navigate, I think it's really good. I think they're going to make a sequel to this one. I think it's a decent watch, but like I say, the 4K on here is absolutely stunning. It's mind blowing actually, and I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was just going to be quite average. So that's Tomb Raider. Next up is Top Gun. Now, I'd never seen this movie until I've got this 4K, and for the main reason is at that point I didn't like anything that Tom Cruise had done, and I thought, well, I'll go into it because on the recommendation of the movie collector, he said it was a stunning 4K. Now, I would say it is a stunning 4K. I'd say the outside scenes and obviously the dog fights with the planes are just unreal. The interior shots for me are a little bit got a little bit noise on them, but that's just be my system. But the movie itself is it's a decent watch. It's an 80s movie. It is very cheesy, I find, but I'm pleased that I watched it. So that's Top Gun. Next up is Toy Story, and then we've got Toy Story 2, then we've got Toy Story 3, and then we've got Toy Story 4. Now, we went to picture to see this one. Actually, I think I went to picture to see a few of them movies, and I've got to say that all these movies look stunning on 4K. The CGI and the computer graphics on these things just lend themselves to 4K because the colours, it's all about the colours anyway on 4K. When you get your HDR on it, it just makes this come to life. And these ones, for me, just come like they're just so vibrant. I just love watching these films on 4K. And I knew I had to get them when they came out. So they're all highly recommended, and I think they're all very enjoyable movies. And I did really enjoy this one. I went to the picture to see it. I don't know if they'll make any more. I would like them to make some more because I think that they could, but they're probably going to leave it at this. So that's the Toy Story movies. Next up is the one that I've just got, and I'm going to do a sort of review on this a bit when I've watched them all, and it is the Universal Monsters Icons of Horror collection. You get Dracula, Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, the Wolf Man, and also Dracula, the Spanish version, which I'm halfway through watching. And I love these movies. I can't get enough of them. I think they are classics, and I can watch them time and time and time again. In fact, I must have watched the Frankenstein movies, which are my favourite of the franchise of this Universal Monster. I must have watched them 100 times each. I just think they're absolutely brilliant. And the 4K on these movies are really nice, actually. This set only has the 4Ks in, doesn't have any Blu-rays in, which isn't a problem to me. And very, very watchable. So that's the Universal Classics Monsters Icons of Horror collection. Try saying that after 20 pints. Next up is Us. This is a spectacular looking movie. I do think this movie is a brilliant movie. I like the whole thing about it. It's got an amazing twist at the end. And the 4K, especially when it's looking at people's like features, the faces, the colours, it's absolutely astounding. Actually, it's one of the most colourful or the best uses of colour in a HDR in a 4K for me. And I think the movie's my favourite of the Jordan Peele movies up until now. So that's Us. Next up is The Valerian. This is being panned, but I knew I had to get it because I'd heard a lot of good things about actually how it looks. It's meant to look spectacular, but the movie is meant to be a bit poor. But I'm going to give it a shot, see what I think of it. And I have checked a bit of it out, and the start of it looks quite good actually. But I reckon that I've heard that the actual people in this, they just don't seem to have put a good performance in for this movie, unfortunately. But I reckon this movie looks really spectacular. Its set designs and also its picture quality is very sharp. So that's The Valerian, or Valerian. Next up is War of the Worlds. This is a newer Tom Cruise movie, and I do like newer Tom Cruise. I think I would watch most of his films up to a certain point. And when we watched Tom Cruise movies now, we do think they're really good. So that's, and this picture, I say the picture quality here is pretty good. I wouldn't say it was mind blowing. It's one of the ones where you think, I don't think it's that much of an uptick on the actual Blu-ray, but it's a decent uptick as well. And I think the sound quality in here sounded really good from what I'd heard of it. So that's War of the Worlds. Next up is an amazing film. It is Whiplash. I've put my Blu-ray case on top of it. Just got this the other day. I've actually just watched it with my wife, so more thoughts on what she thought of it actually on at the end of the month, on my end of the month roundup. But I would say that this movie looks better on 4K. It's got a really sort of like gold. It's got a gold hue to it. I can't describe it. Everyone's face has got this a bit of a sort of golden look to it. But it doesn't take anything away from the movie. I think it looks quite good for that. It's got like a bit of a strange colour scheme, if you know what I mean. But more views on the movie at the end of the month. But I think that the 4K on here, it's not a huge uptick, although the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. So that's Whiplash. Brilliant film. Next up is John Wick. This is the first movie, and I do like the John Wick trilogy. I was going to have a fourth one out this year or next year. And I'm very interested to see that because it stars in as well Donnie Yen. So that's going to be a great addition to the John Wick sort of universe. I'm hoping that Donnie Yen lasts for a one-on-one movie. He probably won't. But the 4K on here looks absolutely stunning. I think the John Wick movies in general do look absolutely amazing. They're very good on the eye. So that's John Wick. Next up is a movie I've just got. It is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This is, well, it's just such a colourful film. And I do think that it comes alive when the colours on there. Now, there is some shots that are a little bit sort of blurry-ish or soft, but the majority of the shots that I saw when I flicked through it, you can see that they were really sharp as well. So I think that in the colours on people's clothes, like Charlie Bucket's red jumper, it's unreal, and I just can't wait to see this movie because I haven't seen this movie in the longest of times. So that's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Next up is Wonder Woman. This was quite a surprise movie actually. I thought it was going to be average, so I watched it on Sky, but I had a great time with it, and I knew how good it was on Sky. I had to get it on 4K. I have got the other one downloaded on Sky, and I'm sitting looking at it and think, well, I don't want to know if I want to go there. I don't know if I will go there. Probably will watch it sometime. And if I like it enough, I'll get it on 4K. If not, I'll just leave it alone. So that's Wonder Woman, but it looks really nice on 4K, and it's a really good movie actually as well. Surprisingly good. Next up is Zombieland. I think this is a great movie. I've always liked this movie, and I thought that where's the sequel? The sequel came 10 years after it was made, and I haven't watched the sequel yet, although I've got it. And yeah, so I think this looks nice on 4K. It's got one of the ones where it's filmed outside for the majority of the film, and I think it does lend itself to looking good because it's got exterior shots. So that's Zombieland, very good comedy horror film. Next up is Zombieland Double Tap. Now I've checked a little bit of this movie out, and I think it looks better than this one. I do think that they're not going to like one of these ones where you think, oh wow, this is going to look the best film ever. It's not going to look the best film ever, but I think it looks very acceptable, and I'm very interested in seeing this movie. I was asking my wife if she wanted to see these, and she says no, so that's me watching these by myself. So that's Zombieland Double Tap. Okay, so that's it. We've finally got through it on 3 parts. Hope you've enjoyed this look through my 4Ks. Next up, I'm going to take another chunk of something, and I'm going to put that into another my shells videos, rather than putting like part 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll just go on forever, and so I'm going to mix up a little bit by doing that. So anyway, thanks for watching. You take care, and I will see you on the next video.